I'm Malcolm Jolly for Good Food Revolution, and I'm sitting down with some beautiful bottles of sake with Mariko Tajiri from That's Life Gourmet, who imports the sake from the Banjo Brewery, and we have Kuheji-san from all the way from Japan, from the Banjo Brewery, to talk a little bit about the way that you make sake. The way that you make sake is maybe a little bit different from most of the other brewers.
The one word that he wants people to think about when they taste the sake is how natural it is.
And absolutely, one thing that I noticed right away on your bottles is that you put the year of the vintage.
So the brewing is the same as, well, very similar to what other brewers do, but by putting the vintage on it and declaring the vintage, he wants to show that with rice, as with grapes, that you do have different conditions, that the rice is harvested every single year.
And tasting the two sake, very different. I mean, you can tell right away that even though I think there is similarities, there is a big difference, and you're okay with that? Does the public mind?
Rice has been every year for sake brewers said that even if you have good rice or bad rice, that the brewer's skill is in making the same sake. So it's almost forced or pushed into being the same identity year after year. But what he wants to show is that because your base ingredient is a natural product, that of course there's vintage variation, and he wants to, and that is his objective, to show the vintage differences. So these two are exactly the same numbers, exact same specs of how it's brewed, but they're different vintages. It's the only difference. And as with wine, sake of course changes as it gets aged, as time goes on. So he wants to show how it ages and the differences in how it ages year after year.
And how long does your sake age? I mean, how long?
Sake, like wine, an alcoholic beverage, is not going to spoil. It's not going to go bad.
Right.
I think there's peak conditions and optimum times when you drink it, but it's not going to go bad. So it could technically age for a very long time. It said that wine ages like a fine woman. He believes the same way with sake. So as it gets older, it shows different characteristics and different personalities. And it says when it's first bottled, it's quite young. It's very fun or fruity, kind of more like a teenager. And as it ages, it grows into its own, becomes more mature.
Can we talk a little bit about rice? Because as you were saying, rice is, I mean, without good rice, there's no good sake. Tell me about where you get your rice from and what you're looking for and what you do with it.
There's about 50 different varieties of sake rice, and all these types need to be approved by the government. So there's 50 types that the government says you can use these rice varieties to make sake, to brew sake. But unfortunately, it's not a common thing to talk about cepage, the type of variety of rice, in sake making. With with wine, we talk about this as Pinot Noir, this is Chardonnay, and there's a difference. People have accepted this. People know, even my mom knows what Chardonnay kind of is, maybe. But with sake, people don't know that. So he wants for all of us to go on this journey of finding out what rice varieties you like, what they do, and the importance of cepage.
And polishing too. I mean, what about the polishing process?
これ今日サンプル持ってきたんだけど、これが 100% で
This is 100%. So this is brown rice with the husk still on the outside.
これが 50%、
The second rice has been polished down to 50.
こっちが 35% なん
And
だ
this
け
is
ど
down to 35%.
What's the effect? What does polishing do to the taste?
そう今説明する
It looks brown right now, but actually what's on the outside layers is a lot of fat. Fats and oils, as well as a little bit of protein. And what that does is it protects the inside, so the white part, which is the starch heart, the brown, the oils and the fats and proteins protect the core. So as you polish away the outside layers, you get to just the starch. With table rice, by the way, the fats, proteins, and starches are all mixed in, which is why it's so tasty. But with sake rice, it's separated, which is why you can polish it and show the differences of polishing ratios by removing those layers. When you have the fats and proteins, it contributes to more full-bodied, rustic flavors, umami, savoriness, all those things. But as you get to just the starch heart, it becomes much more clean, a bit more focused, precise. Just like humans, if you have potato chips every single day, 10 years later you would look very different. I'm
Right.
guessing he's speaking about the fats on the
Right.
inside. So if you ate the 50% or the 35% polished rice, you would feel different. So this one has more
Right.
fats, this one has less. So how you feel and how the rice or how the sake would do would be different.
And speaking of which, what do you, if people are trying your sake for the first time, or maybe for 100 times, what do you suggest they eat with it?
In sake, there's an acid that is in it that wine has very little of it often, and it's called succinic acid.
Ah.
There's quite a bit of succinic acid in all sakes, but particularly these. Succinic acid is derived from shells, from seashells.
知ってる？
You know what umami is.
Yes. Yeah.
So the base of umami comes from also things like kombu, so sea kelp, shellfish, well, fish, things from the ocean.
Right.
Is a big part of Japanese cuisine, the
Yeah.
base of cooking. All sake has some umami, or quite a bit of umami actually, in it, present in it.
Yes, and minerality is there's a little bit of saltiness. Yes, yeah. It makes you want to go
Keep
back.
Going back to what food pairings does he suggest? Things from the sea are just naturally make sense.
Yeah, yeah, and makes sense too. Probably in North America, this is the context where you likely have sake is with sushi or
Yeah, with seafood, yeah. Which is the easiest
Yeah.
way, yeah. So with sake as a whole, the sake industry as a whole, so all sakes can be said that they go well with seafood. But now talking about his own sake, they have quite a bit more actually acidity than other sakes on average. So as the acidity is a little bit higher, you compare with things that like meat or things that sake is a little bit maybe too gentle for sometimes.
Right.
More specifically, things like chicken, pork, a little bit lighter, not so much into the beef and lamb category, but in the lighter side goes really well. When it comes to chicken, not breast meat,
Right.
but thigh.
But thigh.
Yeah. A little bit more richness and fats.
I have another question. Banjo Brewery is very old, but you are doing some things that are very new. How do you balance between tradition and innovation?
So he's actually the 15th generation owner of this brewery. Yeah.
Wow.
So again, 350 years, quite old. But he's only about he thinks halfway through his era. So his job is to actually pass on the baton to the next generation. Even just like wine, sake labels or the way it looks might look, and the way it's made might have a core of continuing on, but throughout the years it has evolved. So his father's generation, they were not making sakes like this whatsoever. But when he did have that generation sake, he didn't think it was very good at all. Palates have changed, obviously,
Yeah.
and even Japanese people eat a lot more food, different types of food than just Japanese.
Right.
I don't think there's that many people who eat strictly Japanese food in Japan anymore. So as palates change, the sake needs to also evolve. It's still, is very respectful to thousands of years of brewing tradition and history, but it has also evolved. And in the last 50 years or so, there's been the most change of palates, or introduction of different cuisines, and accessibility to that, but also technology, whether it's your polishing ratios. So sake polishing machines are what single-handedly made this kind of sake possible. So this is a type of sake called Junmai Daiginjo. So he only makes Junmai Daiginjos. Junmai means there's no added alcohol, and Daiginjo means the rice is at least polished to 50%, at least to here.
Okay.
So this is the highest echelon of sake. It's the Grand Cru category, and his sake starts at the Grand Cru category. But that has been possible in the last 50 years.
Okay.
He has actually staff that's been sent or shipped to Burgundy. So he's got a brewer who's in Gevry at a producer learning about wine, so that they can take thousands of years of winemaking experience and knowledge and try to not necessarily, I think, force it onto sake, but to take some hints from it, take some cues from it, and that's his gift or his wish for the next generation to understand the world of beverages and wine in
Right.
particular, and I think Burgundy also in particular, and to try to take some hints from that. So there's many different cuisines around the world, but he thinks that as different cuisines and different cultures collide or mix or take cues from each other, that a new cuisine is possible, maybe a world cuisine. I guess there's restaurants like that.
Yeah.
So he's actively looking for ways to, I think fusion has maybe a negative connotation, but to fuse those cultures together.
Right.
Yeah. Take the best of everything.
っていうことが変わらないよって
One thing that will never change, is that the base ingredient is rice, and that hasn't ever changed, obviously. And you can only include rice and water.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you.